The camera caught him crying and crying hard. You saw all the tears coming from his eyes. It was like waterworks. And his teammates and other people in the media did make fun of him for it. But to see a man cry like this in the anthem, you know, he's got a lot on his heart. He's quoted saying, during the anthem, it's always so silent and still, so he takes a moment and says a little prayer. He thanks God for letting him play the game that he loves, and he thanks God for everything, even the bad stuff in his life. He goes through his whole life right then and there at that moment. In this video, we are going to discuss Knowshon Moreno's football journey, from where he started at homeless shelters to living in a 7,800 square foot home, from his college days at Georgia, from where he was from the Broncos to the Dolphins, his injuries throughout, and how he's trying to make a comeback today. This is the story of Knowshon Moreno. Moreno was born a child of two children. His mother and father were both 16 years old. At that time, his father was the primary caregiver, and money was always tight for them. They moved a lot, from small apartments to homeless shelters. They were always on to the next place. At that time, Knowshon would attend school whenever he could, in between the moves from apartments to homeless shelters. Eventually, Moreno's grandmother would take over and have full custody of him. This is when he moved into a stable environment in a stable home in Atlantic Highland, New Jersey. There he would attend Middleton South for high school. As a freshman, Knowshon would make the varsity team. To get a sense of how humble Knowshon Moreno really is, during a game in his freshman season while he was on varsity, he actually fumbled twice. He was so angry, he came over to the sideline and he said, "Coach, take me out of the game. I'm hurting the team. I don't want to play anymore." Basically, his coach told him, "You're out of your mind. You're the best player on the field. Get back in that game." They know what kind of impact Knowshon had on the game and had on the team. He lifted everybody's gameplay even back then, and the coach knew it, teammates knew it. That's why he was put back into the game immediately, and he gave him that lift. You'll see this later on in his career in the NFL as well. After his freshman season, Middleton South didn't lose a game again. He led the team to 3 state titles. He was already on the radar for colleges, but in his senior season, he actually posted a game with 420 yards rushing and 7 touchdowns. That was definitely an eye-popper, an eye-opener, and people definitely noticed him after that game. In all, he finished his high school career with 6,268 yards and 128 touchdowns. Those numbers are absolutely insane, and he was heavily recruited at that point. He is New Jersey's all-time leading rusher to this day. Moreno is also a track star. He ran the 100 meters and the long jump and the triple jump, and he won titles in all 3 of those. He was a beast athlete at 5'11", 205 pounds. Having unreal high school stats and being a freak athlete, and his size is pretty decent for a running back, 5'11", 205. He was heavily recruited, and those schools included Georgia, Maryland, Michigan, Virginia Tech, Virginia, and Florida. Ultimately, he decided to be a Georgia Bulldog. Moreno redshirted his freshman year, and in the 2007 season, he would start by splitting time with Thomas Brown. Moreno earned the starting running back position when Thomas Brown went down with a collarbone injury in week 7. He rattled off 157 yards rushing and led the Bulldogs to a win. After this 100-yard game, he rattled off 5 straight 100-yard games, which has not been done since Herschel Walker did it in 1982. He finished the 2007 season with 1,334 yards rushing and 14 touchdowns. Moreno had an unbelievable 2007 rookie campaign, and going into the 2008 season, he was a Heisman Trophy frontrunner. Despite Knowshon having an amazing stats, he never even made it as a candidate that year. He ran for over 100 yards in 7 games, and he finished the season with 1,400 yards and 16 touchdowns. He also had 33 receptions for 392 yards with 2 more receiving touchdowns. This was probably one of the last times that Matthew Stafford would see what a 1,000-yard rusher looked like. Moreno was the top running back in the 2009 draft. He ranked above future Hall of Famer, in my opinion, LaShawn McCoy. He was one of the 6 Georgia Bulldogs to be taken in the 2009 draft. He was picked 12th overall by the Denver Broncos.
So there's a log jam at the commissioner's podium. That's the Broncos pick he's walking up, and the Redskins have already picked at 13. The Saints are on the clock now, but we're hearing the 12th overall pick from Denver.
With the 12th pick in the 2009 NFL Draft, the Denver Broncos select Knowshon Moreno, running back, Georgia.
Wow. A running back taken by the Denver Broncos, not a quarterback. not a defensive player to help out the defense that collapsed in the late stages of last year to bring Josh McDaniels to Denver to pick this Jersey guy.
Now understand, he's my favorite running back in the draft. I love this kid. I think he's special. He's got incredible lateral quickness. He's the toughest running back I've seen since Adrian Peterson. I don't understand the pick, though, given the defensive needs.
Broncos fans were not happy about this pick, and they had mixed feelings. A lot of people felt they should have taken a quarterback or a defensive end.
I try not to think about what might have been, 'cause that was then, and we have taken different roads.
But they decided to go with the running back. After a short holdout, Knowshon signed a 5-year, $18 million contract with $14.2 million guaranteed. Moreno went from being a child going from homeless shelter to homeless shelter to now being able to afford a 7,800 square foot home worth $1.35 million. The feeling he must have had once that home was built and to step inside and experience it probably was undescribable. Now, Moreno's number in college was 24, but all-star cornerback Champ Bailey held that number currently. When Moreno finally decided on a number, he decided on number 27. When he reported it to the team, he found out the story on what happened January 1st, 2007. It was a story of cornerback Darren Williams and how he was killed in a drive-by shooting. Moreno didn't want to disrespect Darren Williams or his family, so he looked up Mrs. Williams' number and called a woman he had never met before to ask her if he could wear her son's number in honor of him. She agreed on one condition, that Knowshon would spend time each month at Darren Williams Teen Center. Obviously he agreed to this, and he continued to do that throughout that year. This was such a stand-up move by Moreno, and it shows a lot about the type of person he was. Moreno's first NFL game was very underwhelming. He only had 8 carries for 19 yards. It wasn't just him in the backfield that year, it was him and Correll Buckhalter split in time, and Buckhalter was very productive, but Moreno ended up getting the bulk of the carries. He didn't have one single 100-yard game that season, and his yards per carry were under 4. He did, however, lead all rookies in rushing, so that was a plus that season for him. During the 2010 season, Moreno was definitely productive, but he wasn't game-changing like we know he can be. He only had 2 games with over 100 yards rushing. He totaled 1,000 all-purpose yards and 8 touchdowns, and he did this in only 13 games due to a hamstring injury he was battling all season long. Buckhalter was at the end of his career at this point, and the Broncos needed a complimentary back for Moreno, or one to split time with, so they ended up signing All-Pro Willis McGahee during the offseason. The two backs would definitely split time, and Moreno was more of a complimentary back to Willis McGahee at that point than the lead back. It's actually a nasty backfield had both of them stayed healthy throughout their careers and actually got some time to play together. They're both such game changers that they could have been something special. That being said, Moreno tore his ACL against the Chiefs week 8 of that season. Even before the injury, the Broncos used him sparingly. He only ended up having over 250 all-purpose yards and 1 touchdown. So it didn't make that big of an impact to lose him, and at that point McGahee was the feature back at the end of the year, and he had earned that role. McGahee rushed for almost 1,200 yards and 5 total touchdowns when Moreno was hurt that season. With Moreno's injury and his game never living up to that draft hype that he was projected to be, I think the Broncos have started to move on from him, and you could tell it was obvious at this point. To make matters worse, Moreno was arrested for drunk driving, and ironically the license plate on his car had said sauced. Cops did say Moreno was very respectful and polite during the whole process, and that doesn't surprise me or his coaches or anybody that heard the story at all. On top of the DUI and his injuries, he was definitely on the hot seat in Denver. During the second game of the season, Moreno fumbled, and after that point, he was a healthy scratch for 8 weeks in a row. Basically, that says right there that Broncos don't trust me. And if I'm Moreno, I'm feeling bad about myself for the rest of the season. That's definitely going to leave a mark in me, for sure. I tried doing a little more research to dig into why he was actually benched, to see if it could support what I'm saying, but there was no actual details on why he was benched for those 8 weeks. Not even benched, he wasn't active, so he didn't even fly with the team. He was just home. Basically, he was just a body in practice, and then he wouldn't come to the games because he was inactive every single week. So Moreno did get reactivated once Willis McGahee was placed on IR. Yet there was speculation that Ronnie Hillman might win that starting role. Knowshon eventually claimed that starting role, and he played amazing throughout the rest of the season, and they were 13-3 that season with a first-round bye. Unfortunately, they'd be knocked out by Baltimore in that divisional round. Moreno would find the end zone, but he injured his knee and he would not come back for the rest of the game, so he only played in the first half of that game. The Broncos waived McGahee before the 2013 season started, so that left rookie Monty Ball, Moreno, and Hillman as the three backs in the backfield. Now, Moreno was still the primary back and would be the starter going into the 2013 season, but he needed to stay healthy and he needed to keep grinding because he was still on the hot seat, and I still don't think they trusted him like they should. He proved everybody wrong that season, and he set a franchise record by having over 1,000 rushing yards and over 500 receiving yards in the same season. He was a big part of Manning's passing offense, racking up 60 receptions for 548 yards and 3 touchdowns. That was Manning's MVP season, along with a solid running game, and it had put the Broncos in a prime position to make a Super Bowl run. They had finished the top AFC team with a 13-3 record, and they ended up making it to the Super Bowl. Unfortunately, this happened, and then this happened, and this happened, and then you remember this, and a little of that, and you get the picture. Tough game. Moreno's rookie contract was up, and the Broncos chose not to re-sign him. Having the 2013 season he did with the Broncos and making the Super Bowl run definitely made him more appealing to teams, and I think more people looked at him and he had a bigger chance, despite the injuries, to get picked up by a team. I think the Broncos would have kept him if he wasn't so injury prone. He had some good seasons in Denver, but nothing like that 2013 campaign, and I thought that was when he was making a comeback, and the Broncos organization could have seen that, but obviously they foreseen something else. So in 2014, Moreno was picked up by the Miami Dolphins. He signed a 1-year deal worth $6 million. He wasn't listed as the Dolphins starter on their depth chart week 1, but he came out of the gates hot, and he acted like he was the starter, and the Dolphins gave him the ball like he was a starter, and he played like he should have been the starter. He gave the Dolphins a huge spark that week 1 game on both sides of the ball, and you could feel the energy coming from him and how the team was playing. He was running hard and running all over the Patriots. He ended up leading the Dolphins to an impressive victory over New England, and it got everybody talking about how Miami could take the crown that year and win the division, and there was just all this hype. And he ran 24 carries for 134 yards and a touchdown. This excitement and my excitement as a Dolphins fan was short-lived, because in week 2 against Buffalo, he dislocated his elbow and would miss the next 4 weeks. 4 weeks, thought he'd come back, still finish the season strong, we could manage.
Miami Dolphins running back Knowshon Moreno is out for the season. Moreno tore his ACL during the third quarter of Sunday's loss to the Packers. It's the same knee injury he suffered 3 years ago. Moreno was also battling elbow issues this season and played in just 3 games for the Dolphins.
This injury effectively ended his career, and that was pretty much the last time we'd ever see Knowshon Moreno in a football uniform. Knowshon wanted to make a comeback and play for the Broncos again in the 2016 season. He had taken a year off in 2015 to really get himself back to healthy and healing up that ACL and just ready to play football again.
You haven't played in the NFL since 2014. You suffered an injury, it was bad. Before that, you were basically playing some of your best ball, and then you had an injury, you've been out. And some people were saying he's done, he's not going to come back to the NFL. You say that's not true, correct?
Correct, man. You know, I plan on coming back. You know, feel good, feel healthy, fully recovered. So I'm just, doing the things I have to do right now, just staying in shape, and then see where that goes.
Knowshon, can you be the player that you were? You were one of the best running backs in the history of Georgia. You were a top draft pick.
By the way, that's no small feat. We're talking guys like Herschel Walker, Garrison Hurst, Todd Gurley. You rank in the cream of the crop.
Right up there with those guys. And you were one of the best running backs in the NFL also. Can you get back to that player now?
I still have a lot in the tank, man. Probably too much in the tank I need to let out. So I'm really excited to get back, man, and I just want to get back to the team atmosphere, helping the team. And most of all, is competing, man. Every year is competing, no matter if you're the starter or you're the backup.
If you had a preference about where you ended up, where would you like to go?
Denver. I mean, here in Denver, it's always a beauty. Wherever really doesn't matter. I mean, I have ties here in Denver, also in Miami. Any of those or any of the teams, man, it'll be a blessing. It'd be great, and I just want to get back. So we'll see what happens.
If you look at his tweet here, it says that Knowshon Moreno is likely done with football, and he tweets up top here, "This is not true. I plan on being back in the field in 2016. And on his Twitter, this is the last tweet that I ever see him making. Although it has been rumored that he tried to come back in April of 2018, but at this point he was 32 years old, and he's just too old to be playing football anymore, basically. And he wasn't considered by any NFL team, despite having an amazing college career and a subpar NFL career based on his ranking and in the draft. I think Knowshon Moreno was a good NFL running back. He could have been a great NFL running back if he had stayed healthy for longer. I think the Broncos could have given him more of a chance. If he was in a different system, things could have been different, but unfortunately we'll never know. but were the expectations set a little high for him because he was that top running back coming out of the 2009 draft? When you have players like LaShawn McCoy, who have 11,000 yards and counting, and Arian Foster, who was undrafted that year and has 6,000 plus yards for his career, was Knowshon Moreno drafted too high? I guess knowing what we know now, do you guys think Moreno should have been the first running back taken in that 2009 draft? I'd love to know your thoughts. Please comment down below. My name is Chris Kupari with Platinum Level Sports. Until next time.